Now there should be tunes. Hello everyone, it's Snake Plays Games, your professional streamer. As always, I'm here today with some very, very special guests. So I'm going to introduce you all now. Hello everyone, we should all be on screen and showing. So, and you also hear a mysterious voice who the webcam's out of, not the webcam already. As you can tell, off to a great start as always. But yes, we've also got a mysterious voice. Everyone will introduce themselves now. I think we should start with Mathilde though, or on that side. She's the newest member of the gang. So yeah, Mathilde, tell us who you are, what you're about, what your Twitch is, and all that good stuff. And Loz, not that you need any instructions, introduce yourself. You can't hear them. Why can you not hear them? Discord fun. Discord fun. I've turned them all up. Can you not hear them at all? Can you hear them now?
Hello.
Hello.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
Ah.
Yes. Okay. Fair of us. So, Mathilde, once again, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, my name is Mathilde. I'm from Norway. I've just started streaming. I started with The Last of Us Part 1, and now I am currently on The Last of Us Part 2, trying to finish Grounded mode.
Mr. Losryu, who are you?
I am Losryu. Yeah, I just play games sometimes on Twitch. So I just play all sorts, really, bits and bobs. I'm hoping to get a bit more of a regular schedule going, but yeah. As for Last of Us, I played them off stream, but really do look forward to discussing it with you.
We are joined by a mysterious voice. Mysterious voice, please reveal yourself.
Hello, I am Mysterious Voice, and I am also known as Crastabule. I actually haven't played The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 for some time now, although they did make an impact and I remember them fairly well, so hopefully I will not be out of my league with this discussion. But yeah, I enjoyed the games very much, and I'm here to talk about them with you.
And last but not least, most professional gamer on Twitch, owner of the Bloodborne Platinum, Mr. Argue Barmies, who are you?
Here it is.
Here it
There's
is. There's the Platinum.
Hello, everyone. My name's Argue Barmies, or I'm sometimes known as Barmies. And yes, I played Last of Us Part 2 when it came out on stream. And The Last of Us Part 1, I've always cited as probably my favorite game ever. And yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. Having finished Last of Us Part 2, I've waited months and months and months to just talk about it with someone, so I'm very excited. And yeah, thank you, Snake, for setting this up for all of us.
No problems at all. I've been absolutely, ever since finishing the game last Monday, I've been absolutely just gagging to chew it over. I think I said to you, I was up till 4 AM after completing the game because I couldn't sleep because I was just trying to process everything, because it leaves you in such a state afterwards. I didn't know how I felt about the game. A week on, I think I know where I feel. I think I know where I stand, but maybe that will change with time, and maybe that will change with this discussion. So, I think where do we start with this discussion? Probably best to start with perhaps the most controversial thing in the game, which is, and by the way, for people joining us, there will be spoilers to this. It's a full-on discussion. and we will be showing scenes from the game. Some of those scenes are obviously not very nice, so you may want to turn away. But yeah, we're going to start with the discussion of Joel's death. The death of Joel by Abby. I'm going to play the scene now. So if you've got the stream open, we can watch it again.
Last week.
It's gonna, yeah. It's gonna skip past all this.
It's all right. We'll just ride out the storm and get here. I've got any brushes or towel or anything? We want nothing but lucky.
You have no idea.
Y'all get electricity in here. Where the fuck have you been?
There are solar panels on the roof.
And who are these people? How long y'all been here?
Since yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yep.
What are y'all doing out this way?
Just passing through. You two live nearby?
We do. A few hours down the hill. Y'all should come back with us, restock before you head out.
Appreciate it. I'm Mel, by the way.
Tommy, this is my brother.
Joe. Y'all act like you heard of us or something.
Because they have.
Laura? All clear?
He's out. Put him against the wall.
Tommy! Get off me! Get off me!
Puta madre.
Joel Miller.
Who are you?
Guess.
Why don't you say whatever speech you got rehearsed? Get this over with.
Tourniquet his leg. Do it.
Don't you fucking move. God! Damn it!
Clear out. You stupid old man. You don't get to rush this.
Pin her down! Get off me! Get her hand! Get the fuck off me!
You got her! Look, you got her! Okay?
You're gonna fucking die!
What's going on?
Let him go!
Who is that?
Let him
She
go!
snuck in.
Why aren't you posted up outside?
We didn't think anyone was gonna show up.
What the hell did you expect? We gotta get out of here before the whole town's on top of us. You're done.
You want what I want, right?
End it. Now.
Joel, get up. Joel, fucking get up. Please stop. Please don't shoot. Joel, please get up. No! 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 fucking kill you.
Well, that was the scene. It's never easy watch, is it? Still no. I know one of the big critiques of this scene is the fact that a lot of people seem to think that Joel lets his guard down, which is something I disagree personally. Because watching that again, you can tell throughout the whole scene, Joel's got this unease to him. He's nervous, and particularly when she's shot him already and he sees them standing around, it twigs. Then he's like, well, you know who these are. These are the Fireflies. I'd like to know where everyone else stands on this scene, whether it was good or bad, or I like this scene personally.
I guess for me it did set quite a tone, didn't it? Yeah, I really just did want to get straight after that, and obviously you're just Team Ellie from that point straight away. You kind of think, I guess it depends where you stand on Joel after the first game, but for me, when it first happened, I was just like, right, I just want to control Ellie, get cracking on with the story, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it was a really visceral experience to have to be forced to sit and watch that. What I think is interesting is in that scene when Ellie eventually gets there, Ellie is restrained and like kind of forced to watch, and you as the viewer are doing the same thing. You're literally like, I don't want to see this. I know what's going to happen. I literally don't want to have a part in this. You're making me watch this. It's horrible. And it forces you to go through that same experience that Ellie's going through. And also the bit that was cut out of that shot is the fact that Joel has just saved Abby's life.
Yeah.
And it adds that extra sort of gut punch to the whole thing. And yeah, that particular scene, I don't know if I've felt emotions like that in any entertainment product that I have consumed, be it film, TV, video game, whatever.
It's not a long scene as well. It's 3 or 4 minutes, which is such a short amount of time considering the length of the game as well. But it feels so long, and especially with the music and it swells and all that stuff. It definitely worked for me, and I was definitely in the camp of, okay, they're actually going to take some brave choices with this, and I mean, we'll get into the overall story of the whole game, but for me, Joel's death is one thing that definitely worked. Krusty or Matilda, I don't know if you got anything to add.
Well, back to the, I heard a lot of people complain about how Joel let his guard down, but it's actually Tommy who introduces them with the names and stuff. And also it does make sense for Joel to be a little bit more relaxed because he's used to living in Jackson where it's safe and they're used to getting travelers who they trade with. But I think it makes sense that he wasn't as on guard as he was in the first game because he's lived a bit more quieter life, I guess. And I also think it speaks to how Ellie sort of like softened him and made him a little bit more approachable, I guess, or easier to, I forget the words in English, I'm sorry, but I think Ellie helped him become more of a human, I guess. In case, and like in the last game, he was a bit more on guard, I guess.
And Krusty, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I don't know how much. I got a phone call in the middle of all that, so I lost a lot of it. I didn't hear a lot of it, and I probably was jumping in and out of the call, unfortunately. But so I don't know what anybody's said so far. But I would say, from a video game standpoint, I very much enjoyed. And I know it sounds wrong, but I enjoyed that they eliminated Joel from the story, which was the controversial thing. But I really enjoyed it because it took out the I am a superhero going through destroying things video game trope and made it become a story. Because before that, it was, to me, all about Joel and what Joel was doing and how cool Joel was. And then when they offed Joel, it's like, well, okay, now what do we do? And I think that's why a lot of people had a problem with it, because they're used to their superhero story and it wasn't any longer about the superhero. So I guess that's my 2 cents about the Joel death scene.
Yeah, I think it links in with The Last of Us 1 so well as well, in that anyone can die. This isn't a franchise where anyone's particularly safe. And I think kicking off with Joel dying, and again, I absolutely agree with Matilda in that The Last of Us Part 1, you know, we'll talk more about this as we go on, but with The Last of Us Part 1, certainly, it was almost as like a story of how Joel, who is just a family man, becomes this toughened survivor, and it's through meeting this young girl who had never known life before the apocalypse, had never seen anything of the what we would know as the real world, how she softens this man, and this man, you know, sees within Ellie a chance at a family again. It's brilliant. I'm just going to take something from chat here. Rebel Murph says originally the developers were going to have Abby stab Joel in the back and leave him disabled. They then felt that a knife was more of an Ellie thing, and because of that they went down the route that they went with the golf club. That's Rebel Mercers, that, which is quite interesting. To wonder how they would have worked that into a gameplay thing, or whether it, you know, having Joel just stuck in Jackson, yeah, not much of a reason to Ellie to venture out, I guess. And Chicken Exotic says, in order for The Last of Us 2 story to feel personal, this was one of the only ways to do it. Joel, someone we all connected with and loved through The Last of Us Part 1, had to die, and the way it was made, it made it much more personal, the way it was done. I agree with Chicken Exotic there. Speaking of, unless anyone's got anything to add on to that, obviously. I think in Joel's death is something, even though it's so controversial, I quite like the fact that we all agree that it's kind of needed for this story. I'm not sure any other way, because I remember when Last of Us Part 2 was announced, personally I was like, well, do we need a Part 2? What can they do in Part 2? And, well, they delivered, surely, on a Part 2 that's different and engaging and impressive. But moving on now, I suppose some talk about our main characters, Abby and Ellie. I'm going to kick this off with any of you guys who want to talk. What do people think of Abby and Ellie's journey through Part 2? The silence is like, yeah, it's like... Where do we even start?
I'll say one thing that just kind of springs to mind, actually, because of watching that scene again, and also I did watch another streamer recently play the start of the game, and because it's probably my fault in a way that I played the game in 2 parts. I played pretty much the first third of the game when it came out, then just stopped playing for whatever reason, revisited it and finished it later on, like a month ago. And because of the way the perspective of Abby sort of, well, at least for me, changes while you're playing it, I forgot how violent and almost how disturbing that scene was. So, I mean, maybe that was just me, like just because I played it split, but I just forgot how much I didn't like what she did and the way she did it, and almost disagreed with how violent it was, even though, you know, some people might say in that kind of setting, in that kind of world, you know, and in that situation, maybe it's kind of acceptable. But yeah, I'm not really sure how that makes me feel, like seeing that violence again. But then, yeah, the journey is certainly an interesting one, and I still don't know where I stand with her. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, I have to say, after playing the game, one thing that was immediately noticeable to me is that both main characters' character arcs are essentially the same. I feel like I said this while I was playing and it caused some controversy. But I'll explain it better here, which is essentially both characters lose their father and they go out on a hunting rampage. Nothing will stop them, and they both become obsessed. We see this through the flashbacks with Abby, and we see it for obviously the first chunk of the game with Ellie, in that the goal is kill the person who killed their father, no questions asked. So in that respect, it's the same character journey. Whether they stuck it in the landing is something we can talk about more about in the ending. I think they went wrong in a lot of places. As far as both characters, I actually found Abby's to have the more enjoyable story in this game. And there's some, I think, pacing wise with Ellie, her part of the game for me felt at times so disorganized, and there were some sections which felt like a slog because of the many flashbacks. There were so many flashbacks, some of them not really needed. But I found Ellie's journey through this game to be kind of at the end, when it was all said and done. I don't know. There's just something about Ellie's journey in this game which I think it's because at the end, and spoilers, she lets Abby go. And I think letting Abby go, it feels like you've like it's a wasted journey. And perhaps we'll talk more about this in the end, but for me, like, at the end when she's lost everything, she truly has lost everything because she hasn't even killed Abby. So the whole point of the journey is wasted. To me, it would have been more powerful for her to have killed Abby, and then she would have truly lost everything, because what has she got then? She's got no goal to carry on. Abby's dead, so, you know, she's won victory, but at what cost? That kind of ending. Abby, to me, had a really great journey. Apart from a rough first act full of generic kind of military apocalypse stuff, which doesn't ever float my boat. I felt Abby's journey was so good, and seeing that, you know, she's a survivor like Ellie. She's so similar to Ellie in ways, because they're both strong characters that if perhaps they had met in different circumstances, they probably would have been best pals, because I think their ideals align in so many places, you know. But yeah, what's everyone else's opinion on both Abby and Ellie's journey?
I think I'd actually take it a step further from what you've said there, Snake, about how they're kind of, the journeys mirror each other, because they do. But there comes a point with the introduction of Lev as a character, who I think is a fantastic character, where Abby kind of ceases to become Ellie and becomes Joel in a way, which I think is really interesting. And, you know, Lev experiences loss, and then Abby, albeit for a brief period of time, it kind of like, it's almost like the two narratives don't quite exist in the same amount of time. And it's almost like now it's kind of shifted on and it's a whole different kind of setup. And I think that's really interesting. I get what you mean about the pacing and especially about the ending. I can understand what you mean about how perhaps an ending where Ellie kills Abby does kind of resolve it in a more appropriate way. And this is something that I'm intrigued to know everyone else's opinions on. I'm not even going to say what my view is at this point, but there has been a lot of criticism about the game, about it kind of shoving morality down people's throats and insisting that you think about things in a certain way. And the whole kind of the discourse prior to the game coming out was all about the cycle of violence and how it ends in a kind of futile way. And to kind of end it in a futile way, which is it was all for nothing. Nothing happened. I'm giving my position away. I think that the way it ended kind of is at least true to that, which is that it was all for nothing. It's a cycle of violence. It starts in one place, it ends in the same place. It was all a waste of time. And that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles in this situation. And I think it made sense personally to do it that way, and also to kind of leave people a little bit unfulfilled in that sense as well, because this wasn't a redemption story. This is what I certainly found when I was playing it. I felt kind of dirty, the things I was doing as Ellie towards the end, and you're basically begging Ellie not to do what she's going to do. And I thought to kind of cut that off from doing it, I thought that was classy myself, but I don't know. I'm very curious to know what everyone else thinks.
And who'd like to weigh in next
on that?
Crasty.
But no. Okay, you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So I agree with Barmies on that, and it's a circle of violence and a circle of revenge, and I feel like that break it. And there's an interesting web theory that I really say seems wrong. That is that, and this is heavy spoiler, but the end of the game, the end of Last of Us 2, where she goes back to the farmhouse and everybody's gone, and she takes out Joel's guitar and obviously can't play it, and then sets it up. The theory on the internet is that she didn't come straight from the battle with Abby to the farmhouse, that she actually had been back to the main camp or the main town and was actually living with Dina. Is it Dina? I can't remember her name exactly, but
yeah, Dina.
Living with Dina. And she went back to the farm on a special trip to say goodbye to Joel, because when she got to the farm, she isn't injured. She's not in a state where she would have been if she had come straight from the battle. And she was wearing the wristband that was made for her by Dina that she did not have with her when she fought Abby. So they're saying that perhaps it left out a portion of the game where she actually did go reunite, settled her home, went back, and she was just going to say goodbye to Joel, which would make sense because when she left the guitar out, it's going to get destroyed by the elements. It's at an open window, and it's kind of like saying, okay, well, I'm letting Joel go completely. Like, I don't want to think about this anymore. The guitar will be destroyed. It's not going to be an issue any longer. And in that way, broke the cycle of revenge and also let everything go in a more complete way than if she had just, gone back and Dina was gone and she was a ruin of who she used to be. But at the same time, it's possible either way, so it does leave it open a little bit.
Yeah, I actually like that theory, to be honest. That makes the game work better for me. In that Ellie's saying, look, I'm not going to sink to Abby's depths. I'm gonna sync this low.
I'm also realizing now I'm on a major delay from you guys.
It's just
Unless
Discord
everyone's just
and
quiet.
Discord and phone conversations. We're making it work. We're making it work. I'm just gonna quickly go to chat though, because Chicken Exotics chimed in with very important. Remember when COVID was running rampant, the game was delayed indefinitely, and then the cutscenes were leaked. So a lot of people already knew Joel was going to die, which forced Naughty Dog's hand into releasing the game. So the controversy was already there without even, people playing the game. And in this culture that we're in right now, is we see the one thing we want to see, but not necessarily the whole picture. So yeah, but Chicken wonders if the game had come out without the leaks, would people still be as angry, or would we be having a much more civil discussion, should we say? And then awesome for our LZ. I was going to say awesome. You're quite enjoying this discussion. Thank you very much. But his biggest question is, after finishing the game, was, are either of the characters motivated by anything other than rage and revenge? Well, I think the story of, Abby's part in particular is her kind of atoning for killing Joel. And she finds salvation and this atonement through Lev. And looking after this young boy. That's how I see it anyway. Whereas Ellie's arc is about realising that if I keep killing people, and in such horrible and gruesome ways, what sets me apart from... I think seeing Abby weak at the end, perhaps I'll play the scene there where Abby and Ellie face off at the end. I think definitely seeing Abby being, scrawny, anorexic, I guess you could say, ill, is obviously what changes her mind. Again, I'm still not sure if it works for me, but hearing Crass's opinion, and this is why this roundtable is so great, is hearing other people's opinion, you can then go, well, I hadn't thought about it that way, so now it works a bit it works better for me. Unless anyone else has got anything to chime in. No? Should we move on then? Basically, well, I suppose we've been talking about the ending a lot, so let's watch the ending and let's talk about the ending.
What are you drinking?
Coffee.
Where'd you get that?
Those people that came through last week.
Oh.
A little embarrassed as to what I had to trade to get it, but it's not bad.
I had Seth under control.
Yeah, I know.
And you need to stop harassing Jesse about my patrols.
Okay. Dina. Is she your girlfriend?
No. No, that was just one kiss. It doesn't mean anything. She just, I don't know why she did that.
But you do like her.
So stupid.
I have no idea what that girl's intentions are, but I do know that she would be lucky to have you.
You're such an asshole.
I'm not trying to.
I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered. But you took that from me.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
Yeah. I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
I'd like that.
Okay. I'll see you around.
Yep.
Well, Krusty's had to leave, unfortunately. No worries, Krusty. Thank you for joining. And I'm glad you told us your theory on the ending, because I don't know about you guys, but watching that again now, you can see that placing that flashback where Ellie's like, look, I'll never forgive you because that should have been my choice to make, where I'm willing to make amends. So definitely Crustable saying, you know, her leaving that guitar by the open window in the abandoned house, it's not her giving up, it's her saying, I'm at peace. I know you're gone. I won't ever forget you. But I for myself, I need to move on from... I need to be Ellie, not just Ellie looked after by Joel.
Changes a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's amazing. This is why I'm so glad we've done this, because without Krusty's opinion, so hello, Salamalot, welcome in. Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about the ending. I mean, my opinion on the ending has just changed just now. Which is the wonderful thing about art, is you hear someone else say something and then it'll make you change your own opinions. It makes me feel like I want to replay the whole game again now in case I've missed something. Yeah. It's a beautiful piece of work when we're all just sat here, we're just like, what is there to say? It's hard to formulate your words sometimes. I mean, Matilda, do you have anything to say on the ending? What was your first opinions? What is your opinion now?
I kind of felt like the reason Ellie was so stuck on her revenge was because she was angry, not only because Joel was killed, but also because she didn't get to forgive him, and that was why she was so content on getting that revenge. And then, to me, the final flashback where Joel tells her that he would do it all over again, I feel like that is him telling her that he would die for her. And when she leaves that guitar, I feel like she actually forgives him, and she needs to forgive him to move on, and that's why she sort of leaves everything that ties her to him in the house. So to me, the ending is, it kind of ends, it looks kind of sad, but it feels hopeful. And I feel like the first game looks kind of hopeful, but feels kind of sad on the bottom of it, sort of. If that makes sense.
Yeah, certainly. I'll read some chat comments if no one else has got anything to chime in with. Lars, have you got any thoughts on the ending?
So yeah, I agree with what Joe said there. You know, in regards to Ellie and Joel's sort of part there. And maybe you're going to move on to it after anyway, but for me, in terms of Ellie and Abby's story, the part obviously when you've got Abby underwater, I thought we would get a choice there. Now, obviously, it looks like maybe there's ideas of a third game, so but if it was a two-part game, if it wasn't going to be a trilogy, then I think having the choice there would have meant so much, and like it would have been incredible. Just I think with all the choices you get in games where it's like, do you do it, do you not? That would have been the one that really, I don't know, I would have just put the controller down and just mulled it over for God knows how long. And that's, for me, that's how it probably should have ended, if I got to choose. But obviously, again, we might move on to it later, but there is still stories to be told, even though the book with Ellie and Joel looks like it's closed. But yeah, I think it's kind of time for Ellie's character to bounce back, if there is a third, because to your point earlier about their Abby and Ellie's like mirroring sort of character arcs, or the path they were on, even though they were sort of flipped. Ellie just seemed in her character evolution a step behind, whereas like someone mentioned the point earlier that Abby got her, I guess, revenge and then sort of moved on, but Ellie hadn't, so she was constantly chasing it. But eventually, in my opinion, she gets her peace, and she realizes that the cycle will just continue if she doesn't stop. so now for me, I think it's interesting to see where they can go with Ellie's character. You know, does she go after Dina? I don't know. What happens with Abby and Lev? I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, for me, ultimately, you know, if I had the choice, I think, yeah, a yes or no, do you kill her, do you not, would have been insane. I don't know how to even put that into words. That moment, the choice there would have been gut-wrenching.
It reminded me of playing Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater for the first time, and spoilers for the end of that game. As the main character, you're stood over your mentor, who you believe has defected, and there's no choice. You have to pull the trigger. You have to kill her. That is your one mission. That's your only goal. It's to kill your mentor, and it kind of feels like you've got a choice, but there is no choice, and you can stand there for as long as you want. Eventually, you have to pull the trigger, and there's no music and there's no nothing, and that's what came to mind when playing that scene in Last of Us Part 2. I'm just gonna head to chat unless anyone else has anything to say on the ending.
I was just going to say very quickly that I think in terms of this, I think I'm surprised that there's chat of a third game, because up until this point, I had felt that because it would. You're right, Loz. The number of people that worked on this and the number of, you know, directions they could have gone, and that they will have, like, you know, workshops and tried out, it would have come up. Do we kill her? Do we not? And I've always felt that the decision to force the ending that happens was one about control, and it's one about kind of, this is the story, this is how it must end, in order for it to have the resonance that we want it to have. So for there to be talk of a third game, kind of and this is my favorite franchise of any game ever, it disappoints me that there might be a third game, because I felt that to kind of clip your wings at the ending and to say, right, as Snake says, like MGS3, it's like, this is the way it must be. I thought that was kind of perfect, and it would be a lovely way to kind of draw a line under it and just say, right, that's the end of that franchise, that's that one done. You might get a DLC for like they did with Left Behind, sort of a middle section of the game, but the ending is the ending, and that is the ending. So yeah, that's all I'd say on that.
Well, before we move to that, we'll talk about part 3 in a moment. Before we move to that, I'll just head to chat quickly. Goodbye, Luna. You're probably already gone, but goodbye. Rebel Murph, this is about the ending. I like that scene as well, because throughout the game it makes it seem that Ellie's last exchange with Joel was less than good. You get a sense that Ellie feels guilty. That's how it was ended between them. So that scene, while it isn't exactly an exchange of "I love you," it was a better last conversation than her being angry with him. So obviously, at the start of the game, we believe they're 2 miles apart, but obviously we know at the end that they're still far. But they've mutually agreed to try and work on their relationship. And then here's from Crucible again. The other thing is that Ellie doesn't seem sad or surprised or anything when she gets back to the farmhouse. Like she wasn't there to find anything out. She was there to do something specific. Yeah, Crassly, like I said, you completely changed my mind on that front. And again, Chicken Exotic chiming in here with the same can be said about Dina. Dina warns Ellie that she can't go through with Ellie's quest for vengeance again, which suggests that she was threatening to leave her if Ellie chose to go after Abby. Furthermore, Ellie returns to the farm to find that most of Dina and JJ's things are gone, but that Ellie's possessions remain, which can also be Dina's way of letting Ellie go. And then Crucible, just about talk of the third, and we'll get onto that talk next, is I was disappointed when they announced the second, and now I'm so happy they made one. I think I'm in that boat as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on to part 3? Is it needed? And what would we want from it? I mean, you started talking about it, Barmy, so I'll let you kind of lead the part 3 talk.
Well, I allow my mind to be changed, but at the moment, I personally feel that, and I seem to be in a minority among most of the critiques and things that I've read. I feel that it was a satisfactory conclusion to things, and I think it made perfect sense. I'm not sure I would be super happy if a third one came out. However, I will say that, say what you want about Naughty Dog and their practices and everything, it's a while since they made something shit. And I personally believe that, I mean, I would trust them to make something good. In fact, I have found myself recently, especially in the run up to this conversation, I've been questioning like my opinion of the game, because I think about probably 2/3 of the way into the game of Last of Us Part 2, I fell in love with it, and I think I became a bit of a zealot, and I'm not sure I was willing to entertain too many critical views of it, because I thought this is the best thing. This is so good. Although I have criticisms about the gameplay itself, and how it hasn't evolved to be a truly modern game. I fell in love with it, and I wasn't really willing to entertain opinions that sort of countered mine.
Yeah.
And I think I should be a lot more open-minded. So that's another thing this game has taught me, and especially this conversation and the run-up to this conversation, is that I should certainly be a lot more open-minded and consider that maybe not everything is as beautiful and golden as I maybe think it is, or thought it was.
Matilde, what are your thoughts on the rumours of a part 3? Do you want it? And what are you wanting from a part 3?
I feel like I do want one, but I don't know if it's needed. I think I want it because I love the characters, especially Ellie. She means a lot to me personally, and I would love to see more of her. So I guess that's why I want the part 3. But the ending of part 2 is sort of, they give you like because Neil confirmed that the ending screen you get when you finish the game is of Catalina Island, and that it's proof of Abby and Lev making it there. And also the fan theory of that Ellie had made up with Dina before she got to the farmhouse leaves you with sort of like a definite ending to it. It's not as open. But I would love to see Abby and Lev making it to the Fireflies, and I would definitely love to see Dina and Ellie making it up again. And seeing Ellie happy for once would be very nice. But I don't know if a part 3 is needed, but I certainly want one.
Lars, where are you in the part 3 camp?
Just going back to sort of Barmy's point, I can't remember the exact wording you used, whether you said it was, you say satisfactory ending, or I think the problem with like with media is, it's like if they were told definitively there is not a third, would they have done a different ending? It's almost like, with media these days, they always want to leave it to a possibility, and obviously there is loose ends. Like, they did a good job of saying, if they weren't to do one, then fine, it's tied up quite nicely. But there are other things, like what Joe mentioned, that can be explored and expanded, and another story could be told. And like, did Isaac actually die as well? Like, was that a definitive death? I can't recall where he was shot, but there's seen, and the thing with the inclusion of the rattlers right at the end, which I thought was rushed and probably not needed. Like there's avenues to go to a third, and I think I'd like to see it, but I won't be beat up if they don't.
I think I'm kind of in agreement with most people, really. I think if they were to do a part 3, I'd rather not a part 3, but a kind of like what they did with Star Wars when they did the spin-offs, like they did the Star Wars story. So you get a Last of Us story, insert title here, the Abby game. But I think they should leave Joel and Ellie. Part 1, Part 2. This is a book. Chapter done. Or book finished. Move on. I don't think they should do a Part 3, but I'd be open to sequels.
Don't you think the problem with that is, though, that Abby knows she could lead to a vaccine, right? So, I don't know. It depends. Like, she's probably going to find the Fireflies, right? So,
yeah.
I don't know where that would that lead to another attempt at fixing things in the world. I don't know.
I quite like the idea of, to mention another Sony title, Days Gone. The first 2 kind of sections of Days Gone are all about how these people come together and just survive in this fucked up world. I quite like the idea of a Last of Us game which isn't some grandiose thing. It's a bit more like part 1. In that part 1, the story in that, the main story of man's last hope for survival, it's super generic. I think I said this when I played the game. I feel like it was purposely generic in order so we could focus on the character development between Joel and Ellie, because that was the main focus. And one of my favourite things about Days Gone was it wasn't really about any superhero or we can save the world. It's just about getting through tonight to see tomorrow. I mean, they ruined it in the third plot when there's the military zealots and all that stuff. That's a critique for that game. The first 2 chapters of that, which is just about 2 guys trying to get through each night. I like the idea of a character-focused character, it's set in the world of The Last of Us, but it's just about some people making what they can out of this world. Which we got glimpses of in the first one, before Joel met Ellie. And I think if they were to do a sequel, that's the direction I would personally like them to take. Yeah. Let me just go to chat for a moment. And Rebel Murph, I feel if they were to make a part 3, they should bring in a brand new story and characters, otherwise it would ruin the story and the conclusion of the second. In agreement with what most of us. If there were a part 3, it should be called The Last of Them, and be all new folk that may come into contact with the currents at some point. I agree, Cressy. I think that would be probably the best way going forward for Sony. Obviously, we don't know what they're cooking up. Spending big bucks on whatever they're doing next, but, we'd be foolish to think that Sony didn't want another Last of Us game after many, many millions that it undoubtedly made. But yeah, I suppose now we've talked about that, we can let's start wrapping up with kind of overall critiques of the game. Where do people stand on this? And I'll leave it open. What are your overall critiques and kind of your ending statement of your opinion on The Last of Us Part 2?
Okay, I'll go first if you want.
Yeah.
I think I still haven't made up my mind as to how I feel about it completely. I think I'm kind of settled on it. I think I'm kind of settled that I've kind of become at peace with the idea that this is the end, and that's why I almost don't want to even think about a part 3, because it's like I'm just kind of reconciling it now. And bear in mind, I played it when it came out, which would have been like June, July last year, I think, if I remember rightly. It's taken me that long to kind of settle on it. I think, I mean, I said this earlier, I have never had a media experience that has made me experience the level of emotion I felt before, like that. I started trying to replay it recently, having watched your playthrough, Snake, and I kind of balked at the idea, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. I don't know if I'm up to it, you know? It's kind of a very powerful experience, and it's a bit like watching a particularly intense film that you know is really good, but you don't want to see it a lot. It's not like, oh, I'm in on a Saturday night, I want to watch Requiem for a Dream for the 10th time. It's like, no thanks. It's a great film, but I'll watch it once and I'm okay, and I'm pleased I saw it. I still don't know how I feel about it, but I know that it's certainly the strongest I've ever felt about a piece of media. In terms of nailed on negative points, I felt that whilst the combat was really good and the shooting was really good and the whole kind of the way it worked was really good, it felt very linear and kind of, aside from the Seattle area, which is very sort of open world, which I thought went on too long a little bit, maybe. I still found it frustrating that there's a bush there and you can't walk through the bush because it's like a hard bush and you can't get through it, you know? It's like that kind of thing in 2020 is kind of annoying for me. Or like there's a thing there, you can't jump on it even though it's lower than that thing that you can jump on. Little sort of physics things like that were kind of irritating to me, and that's why it's not a 10 out of 10 for me. But the experience of it as a game and as a piece of entertainment, I'm not sure I can fault it.
Just want to quickly say hello to Madly Godly and Professor Chronotis, who've just joined us. So hello, welcome in. Fortunately, well, we're not wrapping up yet, but we're on the critiques. So yeah, coming at an interesting time. Did you have any more to add, Barney? Sorry.
No, I think that's my position.
Matilda, would you like to round out your finishing critique on the game? You played it several times now, I assume, and you currently play it through on the hardest difficulty. So, interesting to know what you think.
Well, part 2 is definitely my favorite game, and just like Barmy said, nothing has ever made me feel all these feelings. And it's been I wouldn't say only fun experience, because it's been sad and I've cried a lot about it. But to me, the game, I like the game a lot. I realized that there's some flaws. There's some pacing issues, and I didn't really like the start of Abby's section. But all in all, I still love the game, and playing it a second time I would recommend it, because you notice a lot, and when you start Abby's part, you sort of just want to get back to the theater with Ellie, because you want to know how it ends, and knowing how it ends, you don't feel the same rush to hurry through the story and get back to the theater. So playing it a second time really changes some of those parts, at least. I don't really know if there's much more to say.
Well, over to you, Loz. I think your next one up in the corner
there. I won't. Yeah, I think the other two have covered the story elements off quite nicely. Although the only difference I would say is I probably would like to see a third. I don't know how I feel about the gameplay. Some of it was mentioned already, but I think the amount of drawers I opened in that game, I think that's more than I've ever opened in my life. Let alone, it was. I mean, you could almost argue that you would have to do that in that situation, which is kind of, it's jarring because your character, the characters in survival mode, you're going to check everywhere. But at the same time, just especially if you play on harder difficulties, because I saw you playing it, Snake, and if you don't scrounge around, you're not getting very far.
Yeah, no.
So from a gameplay point of view, that part was kind of distracting, I thought. But gunplay, the way the game played, and I love the stealth elements. For me, it was an enjoyable experience other than the scrounging around. The way they did because you can't unlock all the skills in one playthrough either, which I thought was quite good, quite clever. So that in itself has made me wonder whether I want to go through it again or not. And Joe said it's worth doing, so maybe I will. But yeah, I think overall 9 out of 10. Really enjoyed it. Like Barmy said, there's things that you experience in that game that other games don't do, other media can't really do. But yeah, I wouldn't give it a 10 just because of that, the scrounging around thing. But also, I did think it was too long. I mentioned it earlier, the thing with the rattlers. I think that wasn't needed personally. I think they could have just halved that section. I don't know. I can't really remember off the top of my head how long that section was, but they could have jumped straight to Ellie finding Abby and be done with it. And even if they did do that, the game was still fairly long. But that said, 9 out of 10. Really enjoyed it. I hope for a third. That's what I'll say on that.
I will say this. When I first played, I've only ever played it once, but the first section before the game properly kicks in, which is when you just play as Ellie, when you're switching between all 3 characters at the start, I found Ellie's section of that is quite long, and it was one of the few times where I actually found myself getting a bit bored, because we were given this new character, Abby, who's so interesting. And you're just like, who is this? Because I hadn't seen the leaks. I didn't know Joel died in the game. But we were just with this new character, and I was like, okay, I want to know more about her. And then you play a little bit of her, and I think you play a little bit of Joel, and then you do this really long bit with Ellie, which obviously is supposed to build on the relationship between Ellie and Dina. And I'll come to the new character to me. That was one of the few times in the game where I actually found myself a little bit bored. Because I was like, okay, this is dragging its feet a little bit. I want to get going back to Abby. So yeah, the pacing for this game is... If there's one overall critique, it would be I felt like this game could have done with a few more months, maybe another year. Obviously, there was pressure on Sony. They got to get this game out in time for the end of the PS4. So I understand where Sony's coming from. They need this game out. It's their big PS4 game. Why are you going to release a PS4 game when you've got a new flashy console out? But it needed someone just to come in at the last moment, play it through, and be like, look, you can get rid of this, you can shorten this, you can... it needed an editor who wasn't connected to the game, I think. It felt very long in the nail at some points. With the new characters they introduced, particularly on Abby's side, I thought they were all dreadful compared to Last of Us Part 1. You had Manny, who was just an annoying dickhead for the whole experience. You had Mel, whose only personality trait was being pregnant. Owen, who was Owen. He's just these really average, generic people, and then you've just done this amazing sequence where Ellie wakes up with a gunshot or whatever, walks downstairs. Jesse gets his head blown off. Tommy's like on the floor dead. Well, you think he's dead. Somehow he survives. That's, yeah, again, plot armor. And then it cuts. And then you have this really long section with Manny and Mel. These two terrible, in my opinion, terrible characters. And I think I remember, you know, you Barmies was like, oh, keep on with it. Because I was like, oh my god, is this game going to start dragging now? Thankfully, you know, you leave Manny behind after that first chapter with Abby, and, you know, you meet Lev and it actually gets interesting again.
I want to say that this is not a Manny cosplay as well, by the way. This is not intentional. This is purely accidental.
It was too long. I think my playthrough was 27 hours or something, 30 hours. It was long. What I will say is what I did like. I love the gameplay. I felt they refined it a lot. The gunplay is still amazing. I would advise everyone to play on at least hard. I know Barmies has his always on easy. But I think playing on hard, because you die so quickly and the enemies die so quickly on that difficulty, it has this realness. It brings you into the game. It makes you feel immersed. And with the limited ammo particularly, it makes you feel like every shot has to count, because if you miss a bullet, you're like, fuck, how am I going to kill that person now? Because I have no ammo, I've got nothing in my backpack. And I will say they have crafted one of my favourite stealth video games I have played since probably any of Kojima's great works. MGS3, for instance. It's almost up there with MGS3 for me. If the pacing had been more tighter, if the new characters had hit a little bit better, because like Naughty Dog can write good characters. They've proven this. I mean, Abby is a new character and she's phenomenal. Lev's a new character and he's phenomenal. Why Ellie's group are so unlikable? I don't know. But overall, I will say Last of Us Part 2 has been one of the most interesting video game experiences I've ever played. Never has a game made me feel sick to my stomach like watching Joel die and not expecting it to be so sudden. It kind of reminded me of watching RoboCop for the first time, in that when Alex Murphy gets, you know, the original RoboCop, it's all his limbs blown off, and it's so, like, you know, nowadays it looks really cheesy, but I remember seeing that as, like, you know, a kid, as I was watching it with my mum or whatever, and it shocked me. And seeing Joel's death so visceral, and then all the other visceral deaths that are to come. I mean, if anything as well, I mean, I can critique the violence in that I feel like in places they took it a little bit too far. And it depends where you fall. I don't really like animal violence. I struggle to kill dogs in Skyrim. So killing the dogs in this, and how long the animations are and how pained the sounds are, made me feel very, very uncomfortable. I felt like they could have, you know, some of the deaths didn't have to be that intense, maybe. Again, I think that's a taste thing more than anything.
I think it's also a deliberate thing to try and shift the viewer's feelings towards Ellie away from being undying adulation into, are you sure about this? You know, making you throw the ball to the dog that you killed a few hours ago, and that kind of thing's a bit like of a dirty emotional trick. And when the, you know, I think it's about halfway through the game where you start killing people, and then they start going, "Oh my God, Emma! Oh my God, they've killed Emma!" And then they will start running and going, "Oh, Emma, no. And it's like, Barry, what's happened to Barry? Oh my God, Barry, they've got Barry. It's like they become people rather than sort of faceless.
I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it landed for me. It didn't really make me care anymore for killing these people, because at the end of the day, they were still, we're still playing a video game. I thought it was cool, but it kind of felt like we can do this, so we've done it. Haha, look how cool we are. Rather than
I think it's interesting they do it halfway through.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of they don't do it at the start. It's like, okay, we've now revealed our big trick. You know. Yeah.
But to finish, I will say one of my most hated parts of the game is the first Abby versus Ellie encounter. When you go into this Dark Souls-esque boss fight with 3 phases. Whose idea was that? And please do not let them make video games ever again. Because, my god, that was one of my... suddenly, my opinion on the game shifted, and I was like, well, there's no way this can be better than Bloodborne now, because... what are you doing? It's like... it felt so... in a game that tries so hard to not be a video game, it felt so much like a video game. Because, I mean, it's even got the 3 phases, which is, you know, it goes all the way back to the original Mario. You have to jump on the guy 3 times to kill him. And you have to hit Ellie 3 times, or punch Ellie 3 times to end the boss fight. It felt so video gamey. I'd just like to know why that was put in, because it feels like something that was just like... it just came out of left field. It really didn't need to be there.
It's interesting how strongly you feel about that, because I really didn't mind it that much. I don't know. I quite... well, I get what you mean with the 3-stage stuff, and you know, the video game aspect you mentioned is definitely there when you're trying to sneak around. But the fact you know, she's the one with a weapon or a gun, right? And you don't have one, and then the bit that actually kind of surprised me, but also made me laugh, was just, you know, when I don't know if it's when you drop down a level and it's the second or third phase, if you will, when she like puts a mine down.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all got thought by that or not, but I did, and I thought that was quite probably the only good bit from that. Then in that sense, like, I thought it was quite clever. But yeah, it was a bit out of left field, but I didn't mind it quite as much as you did. Because I remember I saw you, your distaste for it was quite funny.
Pure hatred, I think, is a kind word for my opinion on that section. I don't know about anyone else. I'm probably Matilda's probably the same, playing it on the hardest difficulty. I imagine it's horrible in that difficulty.
I haven't gotten there yet though, so probably gonna suck.
Yeah, have fun.
Thank you.
What did you think on that section? Because to me, it's such a, like, everyone else never mentions it, but to me, it's such like a standout moment of like, I hate this.
I didn't really have the same problem with you as to the gameplay, but I hated it because I didn't like hurting Ellie.
Oh.
That was my big problem with that part. The gameplay I didn't think that much of it. And my first playthrough, I think I played on very light, and she didn't place the trap mines and stuff, so it was a lot easier. I sort of wish they did that. It would have been a bit fun, I guess. But I guess I'll meet that on Grounded.
So I guess I'm the only one then with strong opinions on the Mario boss fight in the middle of Last of Us Part 2.
Do you not think it harks back a bit to the fight? I just had to Google what his name was. David. The fight with David in Last of Us 1, which was also, I believe, a 3-phase fight. So, excuse me, you're sort of creeping around a diner, treading on glass and stuff.
Oh, yeah. For some reason, I just felt like it worked in that game. It just never hit home for me, I guess, in Part 2.
I think for me, there is a slight tension between the fact that Last of Us Part 1 is, 7, 8 years old?
Yeah.
And Last of Us Part 2 is that much later, yet they're still so similar in terms of how they are as games. And I think there's a bit of a tension there in terms of, like, you don't want to deviate too far from what it was into what it is, but at the same time, you're leaving a lot of stuff out that you could have changed or could have evolved further. I remember when they were talking about all the new innovations about this game, and there was a whole trailer dedicated to a jump button. It was like, we've added a jump button, guys. here we are, 2020. It's time for a jump button. And yeah, it's I don't know how it sat with me either. I'm kind of with you, Snake. I think on it.
I just feel like for a game that tries so hard for so long to be like we're bigger than video games, we're above the video game. You know, because Last of Us 2, as much as I love it, it is a bit trying to not snobbish, but you know, it is kind of, it's a bit Kojima in that, like, you know, here's Mario, we're aiming for above, you know, highbrow entertainment, I guess. I think Last of Us tries to strike that tone, so when it completely at a left, I mean, I hate quick time events, but I would have preferred a quick time event in that moment, or a cutscene. I felt like it would have got the job done quicker, better, because it's already such a long game, and that's before you've even got to what I consider the only real boss fight of the game, which is that horrible infected thing you fight as Ellie with all the hands. That to me is like the proper final boss. That the Ellie fight was unnecessary. So I'm going to go to chat because Rebel Murph has posted that I didn't mind that fight myself. I think it was at this point that Abby's revenge story ended for good. Lev is sort of instrumental in helping Abby let go of her anger and hatred. Yeah. Again, no, it's not so much the end goal or the reason for the fight, but it's the execution, I guess, for me. I'm not sure if anyone else has anything to add. I'll just flip the vinyl once more, get the tunes back on, but feel free to add on or state anything else.
Actually, what did you think of that big? Well, I don't even know. Did it even have a name? The monstrosity you find in that.
The
Rat King. Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Didn't even realize. Yeah. Did you not think that was a bit? It almost felt a bit out of place, didn't it?
I really liked that. I thought it was terrifying.
Oh, it was, but
and painful, and a nice challenge. It felt like to me, it felt like, you know, it just made sense because if you read the notes, they're like, this is where it kicked off in Seattle. These are where the first patients are, and this is almost like the first ever infected. So that's why he's like full of hands or whatever. It worked for me. It worked for me personally.
It gave me a bit of a Resi Evil enemy kind of vibe.
Yeah. I guess I just kind of liked the design. It made sense for me. You know, fungal growths continue to grow, don't they? So
yeah, fair point.
If it had been trapped down there for 15 years, growth, you know, what we know of clickers and stuff, well, they don't have a long life because they get infected and then they get shot by whoever's alive. This is our view of like, okay, well, if we let these things run rampant, they're just going to keep growing because they're just mold. Yeah. We can't say the I word anymore, but I imagine it's like something you'd find in one of their bedrooms. But I think we should probably start wrapping up. If anyone has any concluding statements or our critiques have kind of been concluding statements, I guess. This is your last time to have your say on The Last of Us Part 2.
I've got one little thing, which is that I think having read a lot of the stuff that people were writing, internet people were writing when the game came out, but I read it sort of after I'd completed the game. Obviously, so much hatred and anger was directed at the game for what they did to Joel and how they did it, amongst other things and prejudices and all sorts of bad shit that was propagating from I word people. principally.
Shit cunts, I think is the allowed term. Shit cunts.
Let's call them shit cunts to be more polite.
Yeah.
I think those people will be. Firstly, I think they've lost out through not experiencing this. But secondly, I think they would have been surprised by the level of role that Joel plays in this game, given that he dies after 10% of the game, if not less. Joel is like a ghost that haunts the whole game and is in every vital scene. Joel is either there or hangs over it. Yeah, exactly.
Because
right?
I think it's Mel who says, like, do you still see the blood on your hands? Because
yeah,
I think it's Mel who says, like, she can't sleep at night because she sees Joel's blood, because obviously Mel was the one treating his wound.
Yeah,
Abby
so
never
prominent.
mentions it.
He's
Abby
everywhere.
is like trying to cut herself off, and even Owen is like, we shouldn't have done that. We should have just moved on.
Yeah, I think people who wanted more Joel and didn't play the game because they thought he died early have missed out. Yeah, that's my final thought.
It's kind of like, just to add on to that, not to elongate this forever, because we will wrap it up shortly. And thank you to everyone who's been sticking around as well. I kind of like, a lot of the critiques was like, it feels like such a different game than the first, and it doesn't feel like a sequel. To me, it does. Because thematically, it follows on from what I got from the first game, in that actions always have consequences. Which seems like the overarching moral statement. It's not this, SJW, all this bullcrap. It's the moral statement of these games is not pushing an agenda. I heard a critique saying it pushes agendas. I'm not sure what game they were playing, but it wasn't Last of Us Part 2 because, other than, a couple of gay characters, what agenda does it push? Like in the apocalypse, everyone smokes weed. But let's not get too into that. But in regards to part 1, I sometimes wonder whether people don't like part 2 because it's a different type of story, and the way it delivers its stories differently. Playing back through Last of Us Part 1 again recently, I didn't like Last of Us Part 1 when I first played it because the only thing I focused on was the reason for the story, which is Ellie potentially has the cure, and we have to get Ellie to this goal to save mankind. And I didn't like it because I was like, oh, it's so generic. It's so generic, and this kind of comes on to like why Twitch is a great platform for me. But playing it on Twitch, playing it slowly, it made me realise, well, no, the story of Last of Us is so generic for a reason, because it doesn't need to bog down what is the focus, which is the character development between Joel and Ellie and how beautiful it is in that game. Because at the start of that game, Ellie is such a soft, loving, warm character, and Joel is this hot. I mean, Joel even at the start of the game is like, shut up, don't talk to me, I don't want to talk to you, you're a package I'm delivering. He sees Ellie as nothing more than a package to deliver to a location to get some money to survive another day. Yet by the end of that game, through everything that Ellie sees, Ellie killing people for the first time, Joel becomes the soft character. And Ellie is this hardened, brutal, who obviously knows that, whatever went down in the hospital isn't right, which is why we see that fantastic scene. I did have it loaded up to play, but we never really got around to it. I suggest you do check it out on YouTube. There's a fantastic flashback scene where Ellie goes and finds out the truth and has a breakdown. It's beautiful. And then Last of Us Part 2 takes that and does a different game. I wonder if that's why people don't like it, because it delivers its story in a more traditional way as compared to the first. I see you're all like just taking it over in your head there. Like, we agree? Do we not agree?
I feel you.
Yeah. And I think probably with that
I agree.
with that big rant, I think we should start wrapping it up. Because it is. Oh, we've been going for an hour and 40. So to wrap it up, for anyone new here, once again, I'm just going to ask my fabulous people who've joined me today. Thank you again for giving me your time. 2 hours of your time. Let's start with the newest member of the group, Matilda. Tell us who you are, what you do on Twitch, and where people can find you.
Well, my name is Matilda. I'm from Norway. I stream on Twitch. My Twitch handle is at matle_Joe.
Joe, can
I'm
you give
live...
us some shout-outs, by the way, in chat for the co-hosts? Thank you very much.
I'm live every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central Europe time, I think it's called. I always forget. I'm currently working on getting through the Grounded challenge on The Last of Us Part 2, and I'm thinking of starting permadeath after that, but I need some practice first.
Mr. Losryu, who are you?
Right, I'm Nozryu, and I stream on Twitch now and then. Don't really have a schedule, but starting the Dark Souls series, as a lot of people in the sort of in and around the community seem to be doing these days. So that's what I'll be doing in the near future. And yeah, thanks for having me on tonight.
No worries.
Really appreciate it. It's been good.
And last but not least, right above me, Mr. Argue Barmies. Who are you? What you do? Let us know.
Hello. My name's Argue Barmies. I currently streaming Dark Souls 3. It's been very challenging, shall we say. I stream every weekday from 1:30 p.m. UK time. And I also stream on Sundays from 6:30, where I'm playing Resident Evil 2, which I'm loving.
Resident Evil 2 is an absolutely great game. Well, you all know me because it's my channel, but if you don't, because if you come from one of Barmy's lot, one of Loz's lot, one of Matilda's lot, I'm Snake Plays Games. I'm currently playing through Demon Souls, trying to complete that. And I like to do slow playthroughs. I like to be slow and hard. That's what I like to say. Slow and hard. So I'm slowly making my way through Demon Souls. But after that, I'm going to be starting the Shadow of the Colossus for the first time and doing kind of an I do like in-depth playthroughs. I sound like a snob, but I'm not. I'm just an idiot, really, who plays video games. Once again, I just want to say we're going to raid someone in a minute as well, so please stick around for that. I just want to say thank you, Barmies, Lars, Matilda, for just giving me your time to come and chat about one of my favourite games tonight. And thank you everyone in the chat as well. This will be saved as a VOD, so if anyone wants to catch up and all that stuff. And maybe there'll be another big game in the future. Maybe when part 3 comes out, we can do this again. But I just want to say thank you to everyone. We're going to go raid the wonderful Mick Flair right now because he's live doing PC streaming for the first time. It's absolutely brilliant. So everyone, please stick around. And once again, thank you to my wonderful co-hosts, and thank you to everyone in chat. I'll be back Friday. More Demon Souls. It's going to be a fun one. But yeah,